Brian Early, field agronomist, coming to you on a beautiful sunny September 18th afternoon. Going to talk about cannibalization of corn stalks today. A very abnormal thing to be talking about when I think back to the last 2 decades. Normally, in the middle of September, we don't have any volume of stalks that are down. So normally we get pretty well into October, closer to November. Stalks have been standing out there a long time. We get some really heavy winds, and we usually get bigger volumes of down corn then. So, but we have some different factors this year that I think really contribute to the reason why we're seeing corn go down, and it's mainly cannibalization, which I'll get into in a second. So really, there's three ways that stalks are going to go down. They're either going to rot, which rots this year because of our dryness. I've split a lot of stalks this past week looking at some of this down corn. The stalks are healthy. There isn't rot in there per se most of the time. You can find some if there's wounds, but it's not that typical rot where it's taking it out and it falls over. Insects like corn borer, once again, when you cut the stalks, you just don't see the tunnels in there. Insects are not the culprit for down corn this year. It's really cannibalization. So there's really four factors, I think, when you look at cannibalization, why a corn plant will take those reserves from the stalk, so those starches in the stalk, and move it to other parts of the plant. The first one is cloudy weather. I picked a location in Fulton County, and I just wanted to go over some weather charts here. So this was from a middle to the first part of May planting, and what really to focus on here is that blue line. That tells you how much or how cloudy where you were compared to the 10-year average. So that line tapers down from early June, mid-June, and it keeps tapering down, well, basically clear to today. So you can see we've had a very, very abnormally cloudy summer. So you may ask, why would a cloudy summer make that much difference? Well, if you think about a corn plant, the sun is its sugar. So when you're restricting its sugar production, it's set big kernels. It got deep into the season when this started going. So with our early planting, we had a big factory set we had really good ear sets. So a lot of kernels along by around. The plant got almost to dent and blister, so you just can't abort those kernels off then. So that plant's going to do anything it can to fill those kernels. So if it's not producing sugar out there, it's going to start robbing from itself to fill those kernels out. The other factor obviously is drought. That same location, we had almost perfect weather going into August. Actually, we made it to the middle of August, and many of these locations in north central Indiana basically had no rain from the middle of August till now. So a very dry finish. So this weather chart actually shows that the 10-year deviation by that blue line actually shows that we are still above average, which this chart is misleading because it doesn't account for soil water. So this is just above ground rain. So we did start out the season very dry, as all you remember, but we did string along a pretty good amounts of rain and very timely rains until it finally shut off in the middle of August. So getting late, once again, everything was set in the ear development department. The plant couldn't abort kernels off, so it basically had to keep robbing from itself, much like the clouds, to fill it on the waterfront as well. And a couple other factors, nitrogen loss. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, I could drive around and see a pretty big difference between fields that were dark, lush green with ample nitrogen, and then those that were really starting to struggle and start to yellow. So all those kernels were putting a big draw on nitrogen demand. Fields may not have had enough, and they started to show then. So plants short of nitrogen, it's going to start eating at the kernels. And then by far, probably the biggest wild card or the biggest cause of all this is disease. And when I say disease, I really mean tar spots. So I'm going to show you a video I took in the field and explain this further. A lot of complaints on stalks coming in. People are starting in their corn and finding out that the stalks have a lot more issues than people thought. And cut some open. I usually go along and pinch the bottom foot of the stalk. Just give it a nice pinch like that and see if you feel it collapse. That stalk right there collapsed. This one was nice and firm, so if we split that open, what you're going to find is a stalk like this where the pith tissue, one thing you'll notice is that it's all healthy. So there's no discoloration at the nodes like you'd see with the stalk rot. This is a very dry area, and these plants simply just ate themselves alive to move all these stored reserves in here. This is all stuff that the plants can move up to the ear to fill the kernels. And these modern hybrids, to drive yield, that's definitely what they do. That's why we see more incidents of stalk rot or stalk lodging. Not necessarily because we have rots, it's because this part of the stalk gets hollow as these nutrients and
stored reserves are moved up to the ear.
So to wrap this up, the combination of very high yield potential before things turned south with the dryness and disease pressure kind of set the stage for extraordinarily high yield potential. The plants got far enough along they couldn't abort the kernels off. And then you add in the drought plus the cloudy weather plus the overwhelming presence of tar spot, especially in the dry areas where it got off to an early start. And even with fungicide, the tar spot was able to reinfect the leaves after the fungicide had worn off and really overcome those leaves again. That combination of those three really put a tax on the plants. They had to rely on the stored reserves to plump those kernels up and make it to the finish. And because of that, we're going to see a lot of very weak stalks. So the moral of the story is really a lot of corn is still standing. Looks like very well from the field. You go out in it, and you can feel that it's going to be bumped over fairly easy in a lot of cases. So I could see us having a lot of widespread stalk issues this year. So get out in your corn, look, and see what you have. If you have any questions, as always, give us a call, send us a text, or a direct message. Thank you.